Welcome everybody. Welcome to a new episode of AZ Security. Today I have a special guest. His name is Dwaine Ridderhof, and today we're going to talk about securing your dev environment with Azure DevBox. Dwaine, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, of course. Yeah, thank you for having me, Dinant. As you said,
Yeah.
I'm Dwaine Ridderhof. I typically work as a cloud platform engineer or a cloud solution architect at various customers. And in my ongoing projects, I also use Microsoft DevBox. So that's why we thought of maybe sharing that topic, share some of the use cases that we leverage DevBox for, and why we think it's very powerful.
Cool. Yeah. Very interesting. Nice having you back since you have been before. Great to have you back again. For the audience who just joined in or listening later in this YouTube channel, what is DevBox? Can you explain something about it?
Yeah, I can. So Microsoft DevBox is a recent offering. I think it's already a few years old, but it's actually built upon the Cloud PC offering or Microsoft 365 PC that's now being named. And that's a PaaS offering of Microsoft, which is like a workstation that you can host in Azure or as part of a more Microsoft hosted environment.
Okay.
And that comes with the Windows OS operational system, and you can then deploy it as a personal machine that's dedicated for you. So it's not being shared with others. It's like a persistent machine.
Is it like Azure Virtual Desktop, but then personal?
Well, yeah, it's. I think Cloud PC is built upon Azure Virtual Desktop, but I think it's very familiar, provides familiar capabilities, but it's more abstracted. So it comes with self-service capabilities to customize the machine, or that comes preloaded with your applications, tooling, or even your GitHub repository.
Okay. So
Um,
it's more or less a managed Windows.
yeah,
Say it in simple words.
yeah, indeed.
And is it also available in Linux
No,
or
currently
not
not.
yet?
No,
That's a
maybe that will
shame.
come.
I think
But yeah, of
so.
course, you can run a Windows subsystem for Linux on top of it, so they have a little bit of Linux.
True.
Probably the Linux engineers will think differently about that, but
Well, yeah, it's coming there.
yeah,
Let's put it that like
yeah,
that. So yeah. And do you have maybe a picture that you can share just to get a glance of the architecture?
yeah. So I have something prepared. I'll first dive in maybe to the why. So what's the differences, or why
Yeah.
should you use it?
True. Use
Uh,
cases. Yeah, definitely. Why should you use it?
and this is my presentation.
I'm seeing your
So
screen. Yeah.
that's great. Yeah. Well, I watched a series from Build, and so I thought of, oh, maybe this is a nice picture to start with. So typically, and maybe it sounds familiar, or I hope not, but typically when you join an organization, it may happen that you need a dedicated machine for your development stuff. And in my experience, that usually comes pretty in a light version or plain, and then you need to do a lot of customization yourself. So you first need to gather that workstation, and then hopefully they have capacity still available, or have a machine for you available, and then you get a link to the documentation with all kinds of steps that you need to follow to install software, to customize it, to make sure that it follows guidelines like coding standards, maybe put a repository, maybe some tools. Now,
Hardening.
Microsoft says a lot of steps, and that's why they thought of they came with DevBox, so mainly to tackle that the challenge and make life a little bit easier for the developers. And that you can have a self-service mechanism, like a portal that you can go to as developer. You have pre-assigned projects or pools where you can select from, and that the administrator on forehand made sure that it has a custom image installed, or that you have the capabilities to customize it yourself by selecting a template of tools that you require, for example.
Okay. So it's a sort of predefined environment if I want to have it like that, or it's just customized for my workload, so to speak, for my DevOps team.
Yeah, I think both are an option, but I think the main use case they try to target is that you can use can provision a DevBox per project and per specific need. So, for example, if I work on two projects, one is more AI focused, and the other one is more maybe focused on application development, .NET, that you have two DevBoxes available, one that's more customized for AI workloads, so it has a GPU, it maybe has more capacity to handle things, and the other .NET maybe needs more storage or CPU power. And then we are not working on one of those projects, and you just hibernate it, and then spin up the other DevBox, and then you continue with that work and all the tools that you need.
So instead of having a big machine with lots of power or GPU component with it in, which I have to pay a lot, of course, I can say like, well, I'm dividing it into separate machines in this case, in your example, and then lower the cost, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Just having the project which I'm working on with the right sizing. Okay, cool.
Indeed. Yeah, and I really empower everyone to maybe look at this YouTube video. It's really gives a very nice introduction on the philosophy behind DevBox and what the power is. So I only took out a few of the main capabilities, which I think is very powerful.
Cool. I will add it behind in the link description below for everyone to see.
Yeah, and I also highlighted a few of the main capabilities which I think are good as characteristics to understand what Microsoft has offered. So maybe we can run down those topics, and then after that I have more like an architecture picture, and I can also provide a demo.
Yeah, cool.
So as mentioned before, it's a personal Windows machine. So you go to a portal, you provision a DevBox, and that's dedicated to you, and the administrator has the capabilities to control and to set some boundaries, like for example that you are allowed to provision 1 or 10 DevBoxes, and that you have local administrative permissions on it or standard user permissions.
That's an important one. Everybody's complaining, I want to be a local admin.
Indeed. But administrators typically don't like that for some risks concerns. And I think we will talk about customizations later. And that provides a cool mechanism to still have some innovative powers to as a developer. Or maybe in Intune you also have something that I can talk about a little bit later.
Okay.
Then when creating a DevBox, you have the ability to select a pool, and that comes with an image definition, and Microsoft offers pre-built images. So that's, for example, Windows 11 or Windows 10, and then with Visual Studio already integrated into it. So that's a pre-built example, or a custom image that the administrator have built already for you. That includes tools and applications that align with the organizational standards.
You mentioned this that it is built into the image or in the solution. Do I have to pay for that licenses as well, or is it built in when I'm just clicking this setup?
Yeah, the licensing is still outside of this offering. So you still need to have an Intune license. You still need to have maybe if you use Visual Studio that you have a license for that.
Okay.
So that still needs to be covered separately.
So only the provisioning is automated, so to speak.
Yeah, and the window. Yeah, indeed. And then you have the cost for the machine.
Okay.
And the storage.
Of course, always the storage. Right?
Yep. It's typically a PaaS service, so you see that a lot of more complex stuff, and that's you asked me about. Okay, what's the differences between Azure Virtual Desktop? I think with AVD, you need to think about a lot more components than you have to do with Microsoft DevBox. So I think for a cloud engineer, it's a lot easier to deploy the components of Microsoft DevBox. And I will share those components in my next slide, what that look like. And then, get going with it.
Okay.
There's a self-service portal, as I mentioned. So as an end user, I can go there, see what my assignments, and then create the DevBox. It can be integrated in your own virtual network. So for example, if you have an hub spoke set up and then all the traffic needs to be routed via the hub, via a firewall towards the internet, you can just provision this DevBox solution in a spoke of multiple spokes or multiple subnets. So it works with network connections towards the subnet. And then you can introduce network segmentation, for example, and then it follows your existing network setup. Or you have to have the ability to deploy it in a Microsoft hosted network, and then Microsoft manages that for you. But maybe in hybrid scenarios, that's less convenient.
It really depends, I think, but it's always good to have the possibility to have a choice, right?
Yeah. It's Intune managed, so by default, it will be joined towards Entra ID, and then you will see it appearing in Intune, and then you have the abilities to provide configuration and compliancy monitoring. It adheres to so by default it can be joined in Entra ID, and then you can sign in with your Entra ID user account. And the DevBox application is linked, is of course integrated with Entra ID, so it also adheres to conditional access. So for example, you have the abilities to monitor if a DevBox machine is compliant. So if all the settings are enforced correctly and are set correctly, and if not, then you block access to your applications.
Yeah, so you can how do you say that? Have control in who in the network will reach the DevBox, maybe in which country if you are in more than one country. So you can limit access basically on conditional access, right?
Yeah. So you have the ability to just use your Entra ID accounts, or if you need to, hybrid join it with your Active Directory environment. And from a cost perspective, so it comes in various SKUs. So for example, if you need 8 CPUs with RAM and storage, this is the minimum SKU that they provide. Then at the max rate is capped on a monthly price based on the region that you deploy it into. So for example, West Europe is 132 euros a month. Or if you are more convenient in making sure that you really shut it down or hibernate it when it's not used. So I calculated it. It's like you need to use it more than 23 hours a week to reach this cap. So if you use it less than 23 hours a week, then you can also save more cost by hibernating or automatically shutting it down every day at a certain time.
Yeah, that's also a possibility in DevBox, I saw.
Yeah. if you zoom into the architecture and the components required for DevBox, then it looks as following. So you require a dev center. Typically, you'll use one dev center, and in there you have the ability to create multiple projects. And this is also something that you can assign to an administrator, for example. So you can also think about maybe you're a tech lead or a team lead that has abilities to manage his own project and define certain things in it.
So if I have a division, or if I have lots of projects that were starting all at once, I can separate them based with this component with projects.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, typically a department or a division, as you said.
Right.
Then besides that, you define definitions, and a definition exists out of the SKU that you offer. So I would just refer to the monthly price based on the SKU with CPUs and RAM and storage. You have the ability to define various definition and various SKUs. So for example, more like a general tier, which has the least amount of CPUs, or a middle tier, which has a little bit more CPUs or more storage. And then in combination with an image, so that pre-built image or a custom image. Now those two come together in a pool. So in a project, you can define multiple pools. And that's the thing that a developer will see when they create a DevBox. And that consists out of the definition, and it belongs to a project.
Right.
Yeah, and you assign a DevBox user on a project user permissions, and then it has the ability to create a DevBox in 1 or 2 or 3 pools.
And that pool, is that limited? Is it as big as you wanted to make?
Yeah. It's
Are there any
more
limits?
you're setting. Yeah, you can set some guardrails in that pool. So you will define if the user gets local admin permissions, let's say you mentioned, or how many dev boxes that they can create.
Right. Okay. So, but can I also set some limits so I can control my people in the projects, that they are not creating thousands of those virtual machines?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, so limit it to only 2, for example, and then you say, okay, you only need 2, and then for migration needs or other kinds of use cases that you think of, you can limit it.
Yeah, fair enough.
And that pool leverages network connections towards your own virtual network, for example, or to a network that's owned by Microsoft. Now, and if you choose to deploy it in combination with your own custom virtual network, then it's bound to a certain region. And you have the ability to connect to on-premises, for example, via your VPN or ExpressRoute or another manner. So
nice.
Yeah, this is from a high level the components that you need, and if you're up to, I can provide a short demo how this looks.
I always like a demo. Bring it on.
And do you see my browser?
Yeah, it's a little bit small, but I don't know if you can a little bit bigger.
Zoom in a bit.
Yeah, that's good. Good.
So I had the self-service port already open, but to see that login is timed out. Okay. Yeah. So typically, when the developer needs a new DevBox, this is their go-to page. devbox.microsoft.com. You're signing with their Enter ID account, and they see their DevBoxes that they already have provisioned. So I already created one for the demo, but you have the ability to create a new DevBox. So for example, we will go through this process together, that I will now create a new DevBox. And I will call that new DevBox, just to make it easy. Here I see my assignments. So here you can see that I have multiple projects. I already created the DevBox in the AI project, and I have the ability to create a DevBox in another project. And here you'll also see the limit that the administrator has set. So in this project, I only have the ability to create 2 dev boxes.
Cool.
Yeah, and in that project, you can define multiple pools. Now in this, I've created 3, basically to make a differentiation in the capacity and the performances that it provides me. So I can, for example, say, okay, for a certain amount of work, I need a lightweight machine, and for certain other things, I need a little bit more power. And I also make sure that I have one provisioned for that, and it doesn't cost anything if it's in hibernate or shutdown mode. So it's maybe handy to have such a machine at hand if you do some heavy workload stuff.
And do you see it also at your customers? If you're, as you referenced, you're setting up this solution as well for them. Is it that they also have the possibility to just use 2 of them, one light and the other huge, or how you say it?
Yeah.
Heavy?
Yeah, you can give it all kinds of names. I just thought of this, but it's in design that we are going to offer it if there is a need. So we probably will not pre-provision it beforehand, because it could be that developers have a preference to always choose the highest and the fastest one. But
if they've
that's
got
just
the possibility.
Yeah, if they got the possibility. But that's just an organizational choice. You can also say, okay, I provide the options and I will do some good FinOps and then stimulants to always use the most suited one.
Right.
Yeah, and then in here, and in this one, you will see that hibernation is not supported, but I think the other one it is. So this supports hibernation. Certain images do support it, certain not. And then the administrator have the capability to say when hibernation kicks in. So if it is only on disconnect, so if you are disconnected from your DevBox, then after a certain period, for example, 1 hour, the DevBox will be hibernated. And then when you restart it, it will take maybe a few seconds or up to a minute. Then you can just continue your work where you left it. Even if it is the next day. So it's just a screenshot of your existing state. You do not have to shut it down.
Okay.
I think it's very handy solution. And then now the freedom part. This is one of the great capabilities that the DevBox offers. You can provide customization when creating a DevBox. So when I now select continue, I have the option to select a customization file, which is a YAML file stating applications or tools or repositories. You can fit a lot of it in it. From a repository where you publish it, or when you trust the developer to upload the customization file themselves. Then in the creation process of DevBox, it will make sure that the customizations are also set ready for you. So it will actually, if you look from a process perspective, how the DevBox is created, it will first create the machine, then make sure that it joins Intune, and then enforces some of the configuration. And then in the latest state, it will also ensure that the customizations that you have set via that file once the DevBox is created. So maybe not at first hand it will become available, but in a few minutes.
In the after stage.
Yeah, in an after state indeed. And this is an example of such a customization file. So here I can say, okay, I have a few user tasks defined, and with the capability of winget, I will make sure that Postman is also installed. And I can, of course, fit all kinds of application tooling in here. And just
you like Postman. I can see it.
Lately, I needed to do a lot with APIs. And then you continue, and then now here I see that I already created one, and that I have a little bit short on my quota, so I cannot continue. So this is one tip: when you start with your with a new subscription, make sure that you also think about quota, because by default you only have the ability to create one DevBox, or maybe two. If this only uses 8 CPUs. And now I've selected, maybe I have a little bit more already running.
Yeah, your subscription is limited, I guess.
It
But I
is,
think
yeah.
we're getting the point.
So, and then, yeah, but to showcase the already running machine, you have the ability to connect to it via the browser or via the Windows app. That's the recommended manner.
Yeah, that's the native app that you can install, right?
Yeah, indeed. So I already installed it beforehand. Now I selected to open my DevBox in the Windows app, but I can also do it via the Windows app and then just log in with my Enter ID account. And you also have the ability to set single sign-on, and then you do not get this prompt that I just got for signing in.
Okay.
No, and I already had Visual Studio open, but this is my DevBox. Maybe it's a bit small, but it's a Windows machine. Here you see that Postman is installed. That was due to that customization file. And here in here it's just a regular machine where you can do all kinds of work in. And then if you're a little bit further with the customizations, you also have the ability to already make sure that the repositories are in place, that it has the right customization. I didn't prepare that for the demo, but there are a lot of capabilities available.
Okay. If I'm looking to the security side of things, so this DevBox is provisioned by the consumer, so to speak, based on automation. If I look into patching and management and updating and that kind of stuff, is that a responsibility from Microsoft from now on when I'm using this technology? Do I have to patch it manually?
Yeah, you need to make sure that the Windows updates are, of course, distributed to it and installed. So that's still your own responsibility.
Okay.
Bit more from the hardware side, or maybe a little bit lower in the software chain. There are things that Microsoft manages.
Right.
But during the provisioning process, the machine is joined to Intune, and you see the Intune portal right now, right?
Yes. Maybe you can enlarge it a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that is making
So
my eyes better.
So in here, it always starts with the prefix CPC.
Okay.
And in here, you can see that I have created a DevBox that's enrolled into Intune. You can also recognize it here from the device model. And then you have the possibility to enforce device configuration and compliancy settings, but also manage more the patching lifecycle of this machine.
Okay. So if I'm joining it into the Intune, I can manage also the compliancy and the security from that perspective.
Yeah, indeed. And then you have the ability to enforce enforce conditional access policies on it, that the device needs to be compliant before that you are able to access applications or your data.
Nice. I'm also seeing device diagnostics. So if I'm looking from centralizing my logs perspective, I can also send the device diagnostics straight away to a central log analytics or something like that.
Yeah. Or have things in maybe your SIEM SOAR and then act on that, or make sure
Exactly.
that Defender for Endpoint is provisioned on it, and you have policies in there defined that require an antivirus malware. or keep an eye on if you allow local administrative permissions on it. Keep an eye on the apps that are set, or there's also capability nowadays available in Intune that's called endpoint privilege management. And then I haven't prepared this, but it provides the ability to provide standard user permissions and then per process request elevation by the end user.
Okay.
And then based upon your settings, they can request certain processes to run. So for example, that Postman, if I wasn't able to provision that via customization, I could maybe download it from internet, and then with standard user permissions, it would block me from installing Postman. And then with this capability, you have the option to right-click on that process and then request it to run via Intune endpoint privilege management, and then the administrator will get a request in here that states, okay, Dwaine wants to run Postman. Do you allow that? And then, if granted, I will be granted to run that process and install that for a certain amount of time. So compare it
So
to a just-in-time application or something.
although I give them admin permissions in the sense of a little bit freedom, I can still limit those machines, but then with the help of Intune in this case, limiting specific access, or at least keep an eye on them if they're doing something which is not allowed by the company policy, right?
Yeah, this is more vice versa. I think you limit it by default, so you do not get administrative rights. So you provision the DevBox, and then you get standard user permissions. And then if there's a need by the developer to install applications that have not been pre-provisioned, then I just download that from the internet, and then during the run, I will request that on the spot. If I
Right.
am allowed that I need a tool and that I need to install
If
it.
it's required.
Yeah, if it is required. And then in that process, the administrator will get an elevation request and have the ability to assess that tool and then grant it or not.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds great. um, are there other lessons learned what you have seen when setting up this technology into the at other customers? Things that you say like, oh, okay, good to know. Any tips if people are wanting to investigate to this technology?
Maybe I will stop my screen share.
It's beneath.
There, thank you. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, some lessons here. Definitely the quota. Make sure that you request quota on time. Certain regions are a little bit less on certain capacity things. But also one of the discussions we had within the project team is like, okay, are we going for custom images or not? And the main, the thing that we concluded in there is that we wanted to ensure that the provisioning time is as short as possible for the developer. So when they requested a new DevBox, we need to ensure that that process, that waiting time is limited, and that they have tools, the right tools on it straight away. So leverage custom images where you think it comes in handy.
Yeah.
And then for the network connections, that there is a limit of 10 per project. So if you use a certain networking segmentation model, keep an eye on those limits. I think those are my main lessons learned at this moment.
Okay.
Or maybe
That's good to know.
maybe a last one is then that you also maybe delegate certain capabilities. So for example, if you remember, you have the ability to create projects. Now, and on that level, you have a built-in airbag role that is called DevBox Administrator, if I remember correctly. That provides the ability to that person that you assign that to create pools and with predefined definitions. And then because I think the idea behind this is that you delegate that permissions to a tech lead, which understands development environments or development division very good, and that they already make sure that certain tools are installed with the right custom image, that the right capacity is set. I think that's my other lessons learned.
Okay, well, that's good to know for the people that just getting to start with this technology. Do you have some getting started advice if I'm new to this technology?
Yeah, there are some good examples on GitHub with some templates available. We can share that link.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I will add it
Yeah.
to this topic below.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much for this amazing explanation. Also for the cool demo. Any last thoughts that you want to share?
No. Yeah. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Maybe we can help.
All right. Let's do that. And for everybody, thanks for listening. Also for watching. And hopefully till next time. Take care.